Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 395. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me, usual cast of characters, Gail from nyfights.com, Daniel from 4 Boxing News, and the Inspired. But what's going on, lady and gent?
The usual crew weighing in.
Yeah,
Hello.
indeed. Yeah. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report, live YouTube show, podcast, blog, site, etc. Discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we'll talk about it. When it's bad, we'll talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get discussed here. If you want to find out all information regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the site is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.com. If you wish to email us, you can do so p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, you will find links to where to catch us on various social media platforms, links to the YouTube channel, links to the Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, IG page. I also have links on the site where you can donate. Please let donation be the best nation. If you have some spare change left over, or you want to spend some of that refund money, which is really out money to begin with, but that's another discussion for another day and another show, another topic. Anyway, we will be eternally grateful. Wouldn't matter if it's $1, $2, $5. Any donation we will gladly accept. It'll help the overall production behind the show, right? And if you're checking us out either on YouTube, either live or at a later date, please make sure you hit that like button, you hit that subscribe button. It'll help us in terms of algorithms, and it'll get us closer to being monetized. Last but certainly not least, check out the Beachbody On Demand link on the Pound for Pound Box Report site. As I say always, with the summer coming up and people want to get their bodies right for the summer, I strongly advise you check out Beachbody On Demand. All kinds of fitness programs for whatever is of your interest. If you're looking to just give brolic and lift weights, I suggest you check out Lift For, the advanced program for Lift For, Lift More. That's supposed to debut this coming month. If you're looking for challenging functional type of workouts, I suggest you check out Insanity Asylum 645 with a like P90X series. They still rock, particularly P90X 2 and 3. If you're into yoga, there's a yoga program there. If you're looking for a boxing specific program, I suggest you check out 10 Rounds. That's a 6-week program. 5 workouts per week, 3 of those workouts consisting of boxing-based cardio, 2 consisting of resistance/weightlifting. Or at the very least, please check out Beachbody On Demand and take advantage of the free 14-day trial. And that is, for 14 days, you'll get free access to any and all programs on Beachbody On Demand. Let's get things going this evening by recapping some fights here. And where do I want to go? 2 fights I want to talk about in particular. Let's start in Minnesota, Gail, specifically the fight for what was for the vacant IBF belt at 140 pounds. 2 really hard punching guys, Subriel, Matias, and I know for those who are checking us out on YouTube and checking out the description, I will fix that error in terms of Matias's last name. I will fix that once the show is over, right? But Subriel Matias fought Jeremias Ponce. Thought it was going to be a barn burner, and it was for a little while. Ponce put some hurt on Matias in the early couple of rounds, but Matias showed heart. He showed a heck of a chin despite getting hurt. He stepped through it and survived the storm, and his power eventually came through, stopped Ponce in the 4th. Matias is a champion now, and he's already talking up WBC champion Regis Prograis. What do you make of this performance, Gail? And where do you see Matias and his future moving forward? We all know he's a puncher, right? He's shown that throughout his career. All of his wins have been by KO. But does he have staying power when it comes to the junior welterweight division?
Well, Matias has certainly earned the right to try to test his skills, and he seems to want to do it. And I say bravo to him. It's making things shuffle around a lot in the lightweight division because there are a lot of players and a lot of names. And I like the fact that quite a few of the men in this division are willing to tango with each other. Good. I don't think we'll ever return to the glory days, presented by the Four Kings. But if we've got a division where key talents are willing to test themselves, I am all about it. And we as fans need to reward that and not get so hot and bothered when two top talents test each other and one takes a loss on the record. A loss does not mean that that fighter is a loser. There is a difference. So let's encourage it. Let's cheer them on. Let's be in the seats and let's talk about it. I do like the Matias Prograis matchup notion. I think it would be a big challenge, though, for Matias. He definitely has skills. He has power. He's good, but he doesn't strike me as elite. But bravo to him for jumping right in when that belt became available and seizing the moment. That's what it takes. And there is a saying in boxing that once you become a champion, and that belt is yours, your performance and your confidence are boosted. And a lot of people will say 10% at least. Sometimes that is enough to kick a fighter who's simply good to be motivated to put nose to the grindstone and be elite. So be nice if that happened. The only blemish on this fight was the way it ended, because it didn't end in the ring. Ponce was knocked down. Matias couldn't finish him off before the round was over, but it was Ponce's corner who said, no, you're done for the night. You're not going to continue. It is a good decision. I always back a fighter's team when they make that call. They know their man far better than any of us watching do. Still a little disappointing, but for the 5 rounds we did get to see, it was the banger we promised. I'll tell you, the Armory in Minneapolis is becoming the Carson of the Midwest. I love it.
Yeah, pretty much full crowd, and they were into the action, for lack of a better word. So yeah, you're absolutely right about that. It seems like there's going to be a spot, a designated spot, a signature spot for future events moving in the future. I'll say that. I'll go to you, Daniel, and I'm going to. Gail touched on the point of the way the fight ended. That was the direction I was going to go to you in terms of this fight between Matias and Ponce. I've heard the Q word used to describe the ending of the fight vis-a-vis Jeremias Ponce. The Q word being quit. And it seemed after getting off to a very good start, the first sign of trouble, his corner, both were like, no more, no mas. They didn't want any more of that smoke from Subriel Matias. So were you also disappointed at how the fight ended, and prognosticate Matias moving forward?
Not so much disappointed.
Moving forward, excuse me.
Yeah, not so much disappointed, because it wasn't a situation where once they went to the corner and just flat out said, I'm not coming out. No. He even said in a post-fight interview, the corner's the one that made the decision. His trainer's the one that made the decision that, you know what, like, you can hit this guy, but Matias, he just had such better hand speed. As the fight went on, then Ponce. And when you have that, and when the fights turn into like a phone booth fight, which that fight was becoming, then you run into a situation where you may want to stop the fight a little too early before you stop it too late. So I don't fault them for that. I don't fault them for that in that sense, because it wasn't a situation where, like Ponce got rocked like 3 or 4 times, he kept holding on, and then he quit him from there. It's not that. He got hit, He got up, but his corner probably saw something where they said, "No, we're not going to put you into this more danger than you already are," and decided that the smart thing to do would be to stop it. Like I said, I don't fault them for that. I understand why some people would call it Twitter. They'd rather have Ponce go on the shield. But this is always when it comes to these situations where do you want to stop something around too early or do you want to stop something around too late where the damage is done? Normally, we want to err on the side of caution, even if aesthetically is not as pleasing as we would like. And let's not forget, when it comes to Matias, he's young. Like I said, this winning a championship is going to do good things for him because now he's into a division where it's wide open. Wide open. Like the undisputed guy, the former undisputed guy, he has one more fight left in 140, then he's moving up. And Ruguru looks like he's making plans. So there's a lot that can look forward to. It's wide open. I mean, I don't think I could see him, like I said, Matias wanted to go after Ruguru because, like I said, Ruguru looks to be making a different move. But at the same time, it's good to want to face the other fighters because, let's face it, when it comes to the IBF right now, if you look at their rankings, how this is going to turn out after this fight, they don't have a ready-made mandatory. In fact, they asked Jay Cutterall. Actually, they just sent letters, I think, today or yesterday to possibly participate in a title eliminator. So we have to see where that shapes up. But good on Matias, good victory. And as long as we see the kid improve, that's all that matters.
And to provide some context here, in the post-fight presser, Matias said that he's coming for everybody in the division, and he mentioned Ruguru specifically and said that he's at the top of the list and that he'll put him in the hospital. Excuse me for being so blunt about it in terms of his language. That he'll put him in the hospital if he ever got him in the ring. Progress responded last night, basically saying that's easy work. Just hold my beer, wait till I take care of some business, and then take care of my business, and then we can do it. And that he would do a job on him. It would be an excellent fight right now if you had to ask me. I would make Progress the favorite. Just a little. He's too versatile right now for Matias. Matias has come forward, seek and destroy, trying to knock your head off. As we saw with Progress in his last fight out against Jose Cepeda, he can box, he can move around. He's very sharp, good defense when he thinks of employing good defense. But he's no slouch in the power department himself. So I will make Progress the favorite, but it's a fight I certainly want to see. Will be an exciting matchup, one of the better fights at 140 pounds. Let's just say if they can continue to win. Let's just say if they continue to hold their belts, it's a possibility we could see it late this year, early next year. Fingers crossed. Let's move on from Minnesota to Saudi Arabia, right? And okay, we'll talk about this main event. They'll talk about this main event, Daniel and Gail. But I want to focus the main event of that Saudi Arabia card, and you could probably read between the lines in terms of the fight I'm talking about. I'm mentioning. I'm talking about, and going to let Gail and Daniel do the bulk of the discussion on. It was on everybody's mind this past weekend. But on the undercard, you had a cruiserweight title bout between WBC champion Illunga Makabu and Badou Jack, former champion at 165, 168, 175. Jack moving up to cruiserweight. And when we previewed this fight on the last episode, Daniel, the question was, who had more left in the tank? And based on how the fight went, clearly Badou Jack, as he took control of this bout from the opening bell. He never let up. Did a terrific job of boxing uh, to the head, to the body. His overall class showed in great detail here in this fight against Makabu, who had no answers. We talked about how vulnerable he was as a champion, and it really showed itself as he went down twice. Jack stopped him in the 11th round. Your impressions about Jack after this? He looked very good in this fight, right? He didn't look his age. He didn't look 39, but context here, it was against a Makabu who was one of the more vulnerable world champions in the sport. Badou Jack is a 3-division champion, right? Cruiserweight is not the greatest division out there. He in the post fight he says that he wants big fights. He wants the biggest money opportunity at cruiserweight. One, can he get it? And two, how long can he stay champion?
Oh, yeah, that's a difficult part because Jack didn't look his age, but at the same time, the bell curve is you're fighting Makabu, who Don King has been trying to feed to Canelo in his last misadventures. But it's a situation where, you're probably already 2 weight divisions above your prime, but the jump between like that super middleweight to cruiserweight, even when you made the stop at like heavyweight, is drastic. It's 32 pounds. So that's a situation that we have to see what the avenues are going to be for Jack, because obviously between the WBC rankings not really being that prominent when it comes into that division. And if my understanding is correct, he's still technically a promotional free agent, Badou Jack. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. Do you know the answer to that, Gail?
Yeah, he is completely a free agent, so he can make deals whoever he wants. Or
so he's not with Mayweather anymore.
He is not. Ever since he moved to the Middle East, he's been doing his own deals. What it means, though, is there's no reason that he can't make a 1 fight, 2 fight, one-off sort of deal. Should anybody want to represent him, and a guy with a belt, suddenly becomes attractive. But he seems to be doing just fine on his own. Based in the Middle East, being popular in the Middle East as a Muslim fighter. He seems to have a lot of opportunity coming his way on these big cards over there. And, he has really, really resurrected his career, is making the best money of his life at almost age 40. And I say, good for him. So he doesn't need to share it with a promoter if he doesn't need to bleed off that money. Why should he?
Right. Question here in the chat. Shout out to MJ is here. Appreciate you checking us out live. Again, if you watching us, listening to us on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button and that subscribe button. I'm gonna go back to that Minnesota card. MJ is here. Got a question about Jamal James, who fought on the undercard. Fought Joseph Adorno, won by majority decision, coming off of a lengthy layoff. Didn't look very good, in my opinion, in the win. Gail, Daniel, you want to give a quick word to that fight in terms of MJ's question?
Let me take a read right here. Got here late. Oh, yeah, that's the co-main, right? That was the fight with Palermo.
Yes.
Yeah. That was aesthetically, yes. I understand why it was not pleasing. Derek James was too tall. His reach was too much for Palermo to actually really do a lot of damage. So aesthetically, I can understand why it wasn't pleasing to the eye.
Excuse me, Jamal James fought not Adorno, excuse me, fought Alberto Palmetta. Excuse me, my mistake.
Hmm. But at the same time, I don't expect the guy to really look that good when he's had that much of a layoff the way James has. It's a good thing to get bounced back in, get used to using your range and using your jab once again, which he did very well. The main thing is going to be though, this is it enough to really say that he's going to be close to being the contender? This fight, no, not in this case. But probably have to give him a couple of more fights in order for all of the rust to wear off.
And one more question that MJ has here now directed towards you, Gail. Will Jamal James get fed to Boots Ennis at this stage?
Yeah, he very well might, as a default, as a fallback. This was a fight where he needed a win to keep his career alive. He did get it. And, given his circumstances, it wasn't the best return, but it wasn't the worst. He could have lost, and he didn't. So he'll get another chance, but he is going to need to step it up. And he needs to figure out, has the rest of the division sort of, the top guys, skated by me, whizzed past me on the freeway? Maybe. So he needs to decide, can I step it up? What tools do I have? How motivated am I? He's had a lot of questions to still answer. Luckily, he answered the toughest ones over the weekend. He'll get another shot. He's on a really short leash.
In terms of your question, MJ, will James be the next opponent for Jerron Boots Ennis? Don't know. As some may know, I am a senior writer for 3kingsboxing.com, and I wrote an article earlier this week in terms of Jerron Boots Ennis. Word on the street is that Ennis is going to return to the ring on April 22nd on the undercard of Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. We're going to talk about that specific fight between Garcia and Tank coming up in the news segment. But there's rumors. The word on the street is that he's going to Boots is going to fight on that card. And what I'm hearing is that a possible opponent for Boots is Roymond Villa, who those who may remember, Villa fought on the undercard of Tank Davis and Hector Luis Garcia. Villa scored an upset win over Rashidi Speedy Ellis. Put Ellis down twice in the last round. Had him really hurt, but he got the decision there. A lot of people felt that Speedy Ellis won that fight. Yours truly included. So that's what I'm hearing right now in terms of what's possible upcoming for Boots Ennis. They could very well face Jamal James. Ennis could very well face Jamal James, but I'm just giving you what I've heard so far in terms of specifically Jerron Boots Ennis. I want to go back quickly here to the Badou Jack and his win over Makabu to win the cruiserweight belt. Any final words, Daniel, before we move on to talk about the fight that everybody had on their brain, on their minds, and the talk of social media over the weekend?
The only thing is, looking at the cruiserweight division, the way it's shaping up, Badou Jack doesn't look that bad as a champion. But then again, that's, like I said, that's can be seen as more of an indictment of the division right now as it stands.
Yeah, Jack wants to unify. He already made that clear. So you look down the list and think, okay, well, who are his choices? Well, Lawrence Okoli is a makeable fight. And on a card, for example, with either Joshua or Fury headlining in the Middle East, you could easily put Jack and Lawrence Okoli up against each other. I tell you who I'd love to see him fight, but he is, I think, still going to be out of commission a while, is the New Zealand champion Jai Opataya, who had his jaw broken in a really spectacular victory and he holds the IBF belt. So that's a possibility. The other guys are not well known. You have a French Armenian fighter with the WBA super title, Arsen Goulamrian. Those names. The secondary title holder is a Kazakh fighter. Don't love that. You also have a secondary WBO fighter under with the WBO world title being held by Okoli. The global champion is Albert Ramirez of Colombia. So, really, Okoli is probably the biggest visibility in money fight, but I'd love to see him banging it with Jai Opataya, and I do think he'd have trouble with him.
Well,
very exciting young guy. He's a little rough around the edges, but he certainly proved his worth. But I think he's going to enjoy it for a little while. I am not sure this is going to happen right away.
given the little dust up that Okoli got into with rival Richard Riotport over at the premiere of Creed over in London.
Well, that's right.
I'd rather see Okoli and Riotport settle their differences for once. You'll see Okoli in an entertaining fight. But
I know you're a hater. You're an Okoli hater. You always have been. It just cracks me up. I don't quite get it.
In terms of Badou Jack Opataya, I like Opataya. Yeah,
I do too. I do like that fight.
That's particularly maybe they could bring Jack out there to New Zealand if the money's right, or
the right fight,
or somewhere, or they can fight in the Middle East. I know folks have their issues with Saudi Arabia from a political perspective, right?
Well, for all practical purposes, that's where Jack is fighting because that's where he's based, and that's where the money is. So
he's actually based in Dubai.
He lives in Abu
Dhabi. I could see, but the Middle East is becoming a real hotbed for boxing.
Well, and as a practicing Muslim,
the money's there as well.
Yeah, he has become quite a local hero. He's been embraced and adopted by the fans in the Middle East as one of their own. He was the first Muslim fighter to win a title in a fight based in the Middle East. That's a very convoluted first, but it was an accomplishment that was saluted at the time. But yeah, Jack will be off the shelf for a little while. The other thing I really like about the Opataya fight is it is sort of a changing of the guard generational fight because Opataya is 27. And he is also undefeated, although he's only had 22 fights, but he's 22-0 with 17 knockouts. He was very unknown going into that fight against Maris Briedis, and he made believers out of a whole lot of people. So that's I think down the road if it does happen. I think that Jack will get a secondary minor titleist or some other somewhat easy contest for a victory lap fight. At that point, he's going to be in his 40s, but he still looks good. He's always been in shape. He stays in shape. He has good work habits and good work ethic. And, in those bigger divisions, guys do manage to stick around a little longer. He is the second oldest champion behind only Gennady Golovkin at this point.
And he looked better in this fight than Golovkin has looked in his last couple of outings.
Yes, so he did. Quite a bit so. Yeah.
Regular listeners of this show, this podcast, know I am loath to talk about one, Jake Paul, but he was on the brain of just about every sports fan out there over the weekend as Jack Makabu was on the undercard of Jake Paul's fight, quote unquote, against Tommy Fury, 8-round contest. Paul is mainstream. Whether you like him or hate him, he's mainstream. He has a major following, right? And fought Tommy Fury, a lot of hype going in. And the one Mr. Paul, the one guy, the guy who got his claim to fame, via YouTube videos and whatnot, ended up on the losing end of this contest, right? As Tommy Fury did it. I will admit here, I saw highlights of it and I've read reports of the fight, right? And it seemed to me, Gail and Daniel, from my clips of, from my vantage point, watching clips and whatnot, that Tommy Fury deserved the decision. Outboxed Jake Paul. Now, after what Jake Paul was talking about, he was injured this and injured that. No excuses, sir. But anyway, Mr. Paul, the guy with the hype, lady and gent, ended up on the losing end here. Your reaction? Unmute your mic, Daniel and Gail.
We'll do for the technical issues. Yeah, I watched the whole fight. Did you watch it, Daniel?
I will be honest. I watched it through an illegal stream that was shown on Twitter.
Shame on you. Shame on you. Stealing. Anyway, you know what? They were very evenly matched in the end. They were, it was a very fair matchup. You know, we didn't really know how they would interact with each other. You know, they were essentially at the same skill level and background in their boxing careers. So, you know, made for not the, you know, most high level skills fight you're ever going to see, but competitive in its own sphere on its own level. It wasn't a blowout either way. You know, wasn't a promised destruction by either guy. And it showed where they are at. You know, Fury is still a prospect and sort of a part-time boxer, full-time reality TV star. You know, which one makes him the most money? Well, before this fight, it was the reality TV gig. Now, suddenly boxing's a real paycheck, because not only did he earn his purse, right before the fight, Jake Paul dared him to do a double or nothing, both purses to the winner, and wah, wah, Paul's purse went to Fury. And as far as I know, he paid it. So good for him. You know, Paul, you know, for the, you know, if you look at the fact he has only been seriously pursuing boxing at the professional level for 4 years, he's worked very hard. Say what you will, he has applied himself, and he's improved immensely over 4 years. You know, you can see him improving fight to fight to fight. However, he's a guy with 4 years of experience. You know, you can only ask for so much at that point. You know, he makes a lot of mistakes. And he made plenty in this fight. Fury, at least, has been steeped in boxing as an athlete for much longer. He's got it in his DNA. He's from a fighting family. And that certainly helped him. And knockdown aside, it was clearly Fury's fight, and he controlled it. So it answered, you know, the initial question of, can Jake Paul beat a real boxer? Well, he's 0-1. We're going to get to see it all again, folks. Trust me, there's too much money in it. There's too much interest. What the hell else are they going to do at this point? So we're going to see them tangoing again, probably in the Middle East. They're both going to earn multi-million-dollar paydays. I do not begrudge guys making money legally, you know, and they're both been very smart about marketing this fight, maximizing their earnings. Listen, it's a capitalist world. They did what they needed to do. And it was fascinating to me seeing who was really watching, who was paying for this. I spoke to somebody last night, longtime acquaintance of mine. She was at a friend's house, who I don't know, for dinner Sunday night. And she said when they got there, she noticed the TV was on, and she said, "Oh, boxing." And the host apologized that the TV was on and running. He said, "What, my son really, really, really wanted to see this." So the buyer of the fight in that household in San Diego was a 14-year-old fan of Jake Paul who couldn't wait, who convinced dad to pony up the $50 to watch. And I wonder how often that was replicated in the United States, and in its own way in the UK among fans of Fury who watched him on Love Island. I bet a shit ton. The people I talked to had no idea there were any other fights on the card other than Paul and Fury.
What say you, Daniel?
Yeah, this is capitalism in action. As far as the actual fight in the ring, it wasn't really all that great. It wasn't skills fest. Like Gil mentioned, these guys are pretty much in the same skill level wise as far as both experience and what they've been fighting against.
Well, at least Tommy Fury knows not to turn his head every time he punches, unlike Jake Paul. I'm just saying.
Yeah, like that's one of the areas where you can tell that he's been in the gym a little bit longer than Paul. That he knows not to move in that area because obviously he's seen it with his brother Hugo, especially with Tyson. Is this going to be a case where you're going to see the rematch and it's going to be bigger? I don't think the rematch will make as much money because the allure is already gone. It's the I hate to equate this, but I kind of have to. People wanting to see Jake Paul lose at a certain level, at a certain base primal level, wasn't equivalent to the fans that paid to watch Floyd Mayweather fights solely to hopefully watch him lose. That was the only appeal that this fight had. And like I said, I admit it, I didn't pay for this. Somebody had an illegal stream on Twitter, was showing it on Twitter. I just said, okay, I'll click it. Between that and then watching another YouTube channel that was openly advertising illegal streams, but that's the notion of it. That's the only appeal that this fight had. It was okay. We want to see Jake Paul against somebody that calls himself an actual boxer, and see what actually happens. And what happens is he lost. And is the rematch going to change things? Probably not, unless Tommy Fury fully goes Andy Ruiz and does everything wrong and light to a rematch, which I really doubt he's going to be able to do, not with that family. It's probably the rematch is going to be the same result. And then at that point, what do you do if you're, like, from a business standpoint, what do you do if you're Jake Paul? He just lost twice, and you can't dust off Anderson Silva or Dale Woodley. You can't just dust off these people who are not boxers and try to get a win back, because now the question that would be answered, and probably would be answered twice, when you face a real boxer, you lose. And unfortunately, that does hurt his cachet within the sport. And the reason I'm personally worried about that situation is because other fighters, particularly one Miss Amanda Serrano, has tethered herself to the Jake Paul brand. For good reason, though. Jake Paul got the fight with Katie Taylor. He got her to fight with Katie Taylor. The most money she made. And Obviously, they're doing the rematch. I know we're going to talk about that a little later, but that's probably upon the fact that Jake Paul is financing this through this endeavor of fighting, of celebrity fighting. You take a loss, okay, that takes away some of the appeal because people are saying, okay, we already watched you lose. You lose twice, that appeal further erodes, and at that point, like I said, then careers of actual fighters are going to get hurt because they tether themselves to your brand. That's the main worry when it comes into situations like this. But as far as like the sport itself, Tommy Fury, congratulations, you did the bare minimum. You did the bare minimum in beating Jake Paul. If you get the rematch, second.
I think Tommy was more afraid of his father and his brother. Lost, disgracing the Fury name. That's some pressure. Though, Daniel, it doesn't really matter to him about his boxing record. Remember, he has signed with the PFL, and he's now going to repeat this trajectory of the last few years in the MMA world, where he has at least a little exposure because of fighting all these former champions. PFL will market the snot out of him, and this is going to hurt his brand as a promoter at all. Jake Paul is still mega famous outside boxing. That is why a 14-year-old begged his father to pay $50 so he could see Jake Paul fight. That same audience is out there once he goes to the PFL, and the same audience that was curious about what he could achieve boxing, hand is raised right here, is going to be equally as curious about what he can do for the PFL, which is a amazing brand builder for the PFL as a league. So nobody needs to worry about what's going to happen to Jake Paul. He is just fine. I don't think that it really affects the fighters under his promotional banner. And I do think he's an excellent businessman. He's done very well for himself. And anybody else that he has gone into business with has also done very well. He pays his fighters well. He seems to stage good events. I'm not too worried about him.
Yeah, the luster is going off. Even if the rematch happens and he beats him, people seen him. He can be had. He's done good for himself now, particularly from a financial perspective. Do I think he will have that same kind of success moving forward? No, but the saving grace with him, as far as I'm concerned, because admittedly I don't care much about him as a boxer or his skill or whatever, is what he's done for other fighters. I have to give him credit for that. Let's hope that continues in the aftermath of this loss, right? Because to Daniel's point, I believe it was, he has Amanda Serrano in the fold in terms of fighters that he promotes. He also has rising super middleweight Shadeja Green, who looked outstanding in her last time she was in the ring against Ellen Citterels. Green is mandatory contender for undisputed women's super middleweight champion Franchon Cruz. And just as an aside, I think if Green and Franchon Cruz were to fight tomorrow, I would pick Shadeja Green to win. Let's hope that he continues that aspect of the game from the promotional side, be it with the ladies or promoting dudes as well, because I believe he also there's a connection between him and Montana Love. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that is what I care about more than his fighting skill or him as a boxer. Continue that, okay, then you will get a smudging, a tidbit of support from my end. As a boxer, nah. I said what I said when he first entered the professional ranks, into the ring. I don't see much. I don't think much is going to happen. It's going to plateau, and it seemed, in my opinion, that it plateaued with this fight. We've mentioned the fact that he promotes Amanda Serrano. Let's touch on that right quick. Daniel and Gail, it was expected that Serrano was going to engage in a rematch with undisputed women's lightweight champion Katie Taylor. It was announced after Serrano's win over Erica Cruz earlier now February, since we're now March 1st. This episode is being recorded live on March 1st. News broke that due to an undisclosed injury, the rematch between Taylor and Serrano is now postponed. Don't know anything about a makeup date or anything as of this live recording. From your sources, Daniel, Gail, have you heard anything about the specific injury that Serrano was dealing with, or have you heard anything about a possible makeup date?
From the back channels that I've talked to, I don't know the specifics of it. All I know is that it's serious enough that it warranted a postponement. If it was like a light injury, like a slight sprain or bruising, Amanda would have been able to rest and still restart training camp in time to make this, because the fight was originally scheduled in May. So there was still time. The fact that they had to delay it in the first place tells you the injury is not superficial. We haven't heard much about when the fight is going to be rescheduled. Obviously, you're dealing with a completely different environment when it comes to Ireland. Whether, like, the Irish, they're going to try to put this in the stadium. We don't know if I think Ireland does have their own soccer league that's not tied to the EPL or UEFA, if my understanding is correct. No, they're tied to UEFA, but you still have to see now what future dates can be open for, because I believe their soccer schedule runs through the summer. So now you have to see what venues can be open, and this is a fight where they have to do it in the stadium. They're not going to take it to an arena. It has to be at the stadium. So now you're dealing with those logistics coming into it. But hopefully it's the only roadblock when it comes to this fight. And when it comes to Serrano, like, you're always afraid that something like this will happen, just mainly because of the manner that she jumped around from division to division between boxing and MMA. Eventually that does catch up with you. So hopefully not a situation where it's an injury that accumulated. Hopefully something that just happened in the beginning of training. They just had to rest up and then just continue with the plans.
So what I'm hearing about the injury is that it's a hand injury, and it's been a nagging problem that goes back to her fight with Miriam Gutierrez at the very end of 2021. I think it was December 2021. And she's had 3 fights since then. But she had a real barn burner of a fight against Erica Cruz on February 4th earlier this month. I mean, that was a banger of a fight. She threw 949 punches in a 10-round fight with 2-minute rounds. Do the math. And apparently the hand had bounced back in the prior fights, but not this time. The word is that it isn't something so bad that it will require surgery, but she calculated the same sort of healing time as her prior fights, which were in no way as active or offensive, minded as her fight with Cruz. So plus 3rd time she's fought on a, weakened hand, apparently. Now, if she really does have a hand that isn't 100% and she still fought that way, I'm impressed, but she wants more time to heal. The word is also that Matchroom hasn't completely given up staging the fight with another opponent, although Chantel Cameron has said, not going to be me. So the fight is, the homecoming is potentially still in play on the same date. Don't know about the venue. I think Taylor would fill the venue no matter who was standing in front of her, but the promoters may want to rethink a smaller venue or somewhere else to not sort of spoil the grandeur of the whole thing and the rematch with Serrano being in that venue. So we'll see what happens. I think, in the coming weeks, don't be surprised if we find out there's a fight after all on another level and Taylor just decides she wants to stay busy. And good for her if she does.
And we'll keep you updated here on Pound for Pound Boxing Report in terms of this situation regarding Taylor and Serrano and their rematch. Will it happen? If so, when there's going to be a makeup date. Another fight we're going to talk about here is Tank and Ryan Garcia. The fight is finalized. It's set. It's going to happen April 22nd in Las Vegas. Fight has been talked about in negotiations for months, going back to October, November last year. Gail, yeah. Two guys who can hit, two guys who are very popular, two guys who are polarizing figures, love-hate kind of deal with both of them. But after years of back and forth trash talk, we're finally going to see these two cats in the ring.
Yep. And thank God. Thank God for them and for boxing as a whole. They made the fight. It had taken sort of oversized importance as a fight everybody wanted to see and really wanted to see made, given that so many other promised, anticipated big matchups just weren't happening, to the point that in the last couple of weeks before the announcement, we've seen multiple articles, YouTube discussions, Twitter spaces, just hand-wringing to an enormous extent about, boxing being on life support, this and that. Folks, as Larry Merchant has famously said, boxing, you can't kill it and you can't fix it. It's the way it is. It's been this way in some shape or form ever since it became a money-making operation. But bravo to the gentlemen involved, the promoters involved, the moneymakers involved. They got it done. And the only hang-up is there's a date, but there isn't a venue yet. And, they're scrambling around to maximize the money, which would speak of the fight being likely in Las Vegas. But they're a little bit between venues. The T-Mobile Arena dates are being held in May because of the Vegas Golden Knights NHL team potentially being in the playoffs, in which case the desired dates for the fight card might not be available there. MGM Grand is slightly smaller. It could be done there. There are a lot of people, though, very excited about, gosh, could it be done at Allegiant Stadium? That's a really big place for two guys to fill, but that's a possibility. Another idea that I have heard floated is to give old Jerry Jones a call and do it at Jerry's World. Texas boxing fans would certainly show up. The Mexican-American crowd would be behind Garcia. The same folks that are fans of Texas-based fighters like Errol Spence, like the Charlos, would certainly back Gervonta Davis. And fights sell very, very well at these big Texas venues. You just don't have the same kind of gambling and tourism revenue that you do in Vegas. But it's good for boxing. Credit to both these guys for making the fight. And by all accounts, it was, nominally the B side, Ryan Garcia, who really, really pushed this forward and really leaned hard on Oscar De La Hoya and everyone involved to make it, whatever concessions were necessary, he was willing. Good for him.
Early breakdown of this fight, Daniel.
Well, first, like I said, we have to congratulate both men on actually getting at least a framework of a deal done. The final T, the final I hasn't been crossed or dotted yet. Granted, that could implode the whole thing, but let's celebrate for the moment that two people that have been jaw jacking at each other for years are actually going to settle things in the ring. And this is an interesting fight from a good standpoint because Tank has a good skill set. He's not just brute force. But the main advantage that he's always had against his opponents up to this point has been hand speed. He's not going to have that advantage in this fight. Ryan Garcia has the faster hands in between both of them. And Ryan can crack because he's naturally bigger than Tank in weight, so he can crack. The thing is going to be is can Tank land a good shot to knock Ryan down? Because we've already seen Ryan Garcia get knocked down by Luke Campbell. But at the same time, we also saw before he pulled it out with a knockout, we saw Tank lose a fight and lose convincingly to Rolly Romero. And Ryan Garcia, as far as skill set goes, is leagues above Rolly.
Did you say lost? Did you say Tank lost?
He was losing. He was losing until
he was losing to Rolly. Okay.
Yeah, he was losing to Rolly until he got the knockout. But that tells you something. Like Tank can be bothered, and like I said, Ryan is leagues above Rolly when it comes to skill set, and that's going to be an interesting chess match to go. What is Tank going to do against somebody that now has hands that are faster than he is? He's used to facing taller fighters. He's used to facing fighters that have a longer reach, but he's never faced that trifecta. Taller, longer, and with faster hands. So that's going to be the interesting dynamic. Everything else is going to be outstanding. Social media is going to be exploding on that. Because both of these guys put their brands on there.
Oh man, they are the two are brands. The pre-fight festivities is going to be bananas. Both have big fan bases. I'm fully expecting a few arguments, a few shoving matches between the two. The interviews, the one-on-one interviews, is going to be nuts. So, yeah, let the hype train begin. At the end of the day, I'm just glad that this fight is happening and the two camps got together. Golden Boy did what they had to do, and the fight is finally here. It was finally made. Another fight that was announced as basically a done deal, not completely done. That is the matchup between Josh Taylor and Teofimo Lopez. Taylor, WBO champion at 140. Teofimo, former unified champion, 130 pounds. The fight is going to happen in June the 10th, I believe. Are you surprised that the fight is going to happen in New York, either at Hulu Theater or the big room at MSG? Surprised that it's happening here in the States in NYC as opposed to Taylor fighting in his backyard, England, Scotland?
Oh no, absolutely not. Because of the opponent. Lopez is a big draw. And while he's Scottish, the Irish and UK fans who are very avid supporters of their fighters in New York, both British Americans and Brits who are there, the natural rivalry will play really well in New York. So that's a good spot for it to be. Easy to promote. I'm not sure they can fill the big room, but it'll be a banging, fun fight with really lively crowd, and I'm sure they can sell out the Hulu Theater. So wherever it lands, I like the fight. Um, this is a dangerous fight for both, and that a loss will be devastating. Whoever loses is a real hit to their career. Probably more risk for Lopez than there is for Taylor, but I like the fact that they are going for it. So sign me up.
I still would like to see Taylor fight the rematch with Catterall. I still would like to see Teofimo fight Regis Progress, but the bottom line is that they're not. Those fights are not going to happen. Those fights are not happening. Excuse me, Daniel. Economics rule everything at the end of the day. Cash rules. To quote Wu Tang, right? And given that backdrop, yeah, Taylor Lopez is going to fight each other. It's the big money fight. It's the biggest money fight for both men and for Top Rank. That's why this fight is happening.
Exactly. It's one of the it's a consequence. One of the long term consequences of Triller initially winning that purse bid for Teofimo versus Cambosos, because it forced Top Rank to the negotiating table, and when they signed a new deal, Lopez made sure that he had to get paid a good amount of money for his future fights. So, even though I would prefer to see him against Rugerud, it's not going to make as much money in house again as a fight with Josh Taylor would be. And I'm not surprised one bit why they're having this fight in the States, especially if you're Taylor's camp. Because you cannot control that UK crowd. Because you try to have that fight in the UK, especially in the British side of the UK, or you know there's going to be a section of fans that are Catterall fans that are just going to go there to jeer you. And you rather not have a divided house in your home turf. If you're going to have a divided house, you have it on the other person's turf. And yes, UK fans will travel. I'm kind of surprised, though, when it comes to this fight, especially considering that Lopez more or less identifies more with Brooklyn than Manhattan. It could just be the way the arenas work. I have to look into it, but I'm kind of surprised they're not going to try Barclays. Because it's obvious now that the Brooklyn Nets are not going to be anywhere near the NBA Finals at that point. And it's a bigger arena, bigger venue. It's easy to get around on the train from Atlantic Yards and Atlantic Avenue. So I could see you try to go there, but it's also understanding Top Rank has a much more solid relationship with MSG. So whether it's in the Hulu Theater or in the big room, which I think this kind of fight might fill the big room, but it is the fight that you can make. It is the money fight that you can make, and I agree with Gail. Whoever loses, especially if it's Lopez, is going to come out hurt because of it. Because Taylor loses, oh, that's what you get for this. The fast go, that's what you get for cherry picking, for ducking Catterall. If Lopez loses, you have to wonder about his mental state.
Yeah,
because that's you people going to point to that part of the post fight where Top Rank cameras are right there and say, do I still have it? Do I still got it? Well, I say my own personal belief saying that it's good that he's questioning that, because then he's not buying into people trying to hype him up. At the same time, another loss against a top opponent, yeah, that messes with your psyche. Still a good fight to make. Granted, I wish the opponents were different.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last point is the key for me, Daniel. Coming off for Lopez, coming off of that fight against Sandro Martin, where he was caught on camera, visibly caught on camera, questioning himself. In his words, wondering if he quote unquote still has it. Uh, sure, Taylor is coming into this fight off injury. He's still recovering from plantar fasciitis in his foot, right? Um, but he says he'll be ready 100% in by the time that fight happens in June. I just want to see where Lopez is from a mental perspective. If there are any lingering doubts in his mind still, he gets beat because Taylor at his best. Um, does he has the greatest jab in the world? No, but he can certainly move it on his A game. He has enough to get a decision. Um, Taylor has own questions as well, coming off of the fight against Catterall, in which I will go to my dying bed saying that Catterall beat him that afternoon. Is and most boxing fans, at least most boxing fans with sense, would agree with that. He didn't look good in that fight. That performance against Catterall could be a one-off. He should come in highly motivated to show that that the Taylor that we saw against Catterall, that was not a true indication of the fighter that he was. But still, the bulk of my attention will be on Teofimo Lopez. He can't talk his way out of what we saw at the end of that fight against Martin. He has to show it in the ring. Can he? Will he? We will all see on June the 10th. Let's move on to some fights here. And one main fights I want to talk about in terms of preview before we get ready to sign off. Um, fight for the vacant WBC, but I believe it's interim title at 126 pounds. We saw the full champion Ray Vargas go up to 130 pounds and lose to a Shaky Foster. Was dominated by a Shaky Foster, as far as I'm concerned. Well, Brandon Figueroa, a former champion at 122 pounds, moving up to 126 to fight former champion Mark Magsayo. Magsayo is the guy that Ray Vargas beat for the WBC belt at 126. And the floor is open to anybody who wants it. We've had a succession of really of fights that have been a bit under the radar, but has turned out to be really good bouts over the past, let's just say, 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks. I think we have the potential for the same when it comes to this fight. Um, Figueroa, he likes to apply pressure. He's a really good body puncher. I think the move to 126 pounds, it really suits him physically. He's facing a Magsayo, may not throw as many punches as Figueroa, but he's sturdy and he can crack and he's going to be right there coming forward. I think the styles match very well. And I think at the end of the day, I don't know who put it this way. I'll lean towards Figueroa to get the win here, but Magsayo is certainly capable of getting the victory. But the thing for me is, I think we have the opportunity for another exciting bout. What say y'all?
I think we are going to get yet another nifty little banger from Showtime. These guys aren't household names, but you do have a championship belt on the line, just like you did last weekend. And for the hardcore, these are absolutely great fight cards. There's some nice fights on the undercard, plus a lot of young guys getting their shot, guys that aren't quite showbox material. They're either past it or they're not quite worth featuring, but getting their shot. And it's close to home, and I get to be ringside. Ain't nothing bad about any of that. I do agree with you. I think Figueroa has the upper hand. Um, that win by Magsayo was very slim, and it was against a compromised Russell Jr. So it it depends a lot about something we mentioned earlier in the show, that that myth that boxing has, that once you've got that belt, you're just that much better. You're 10% better. You fight with more confidence. Magsayo's kind of a wild fighter. Um, he he just seems to be a Tasmanian devil once in a while. Not quite sure where.
It seems like unfortunately we lost Gail due to some technical difficulties. Pick up on where she left off, Daniel.
Yeah, this is a sleeper banger here. This is a sleeper banger. I agree with Gail when it comes into this, because to me, both of these fighters are coming into this with a different chip on their shoulder. But for Magsayo, this is his chance to get the rematch, to get his title back against what may be now a vulnerable Ray Vargas. Because that fight with Vargas was a pretty interesting fight to see. And maybe Magsayo can see vulnerabilities in what he saw, flaws in what Vargas is going to do, and then moving back down. Maybe he could see that he could force something where he regains the belt. When it comes to Figueroa, the chip on his shoulder is Stephen Fulton. Because that fight between him and Fulton was very, very close. I'm still of the opinion that Figueroa won that fight. But it was that close. And now you're up in the weight division. You know Fulton is probably going to move up. Probably no matter what happens in his fight against Down in the way. How good would it be now that he wins this fight, he goes against Vargas, he has the skill set to beat Vargas, and then when Fulton now at featherweight, he has to look at Figueroa and say, okay, now you're going to fight on my terms. Both of these guys have something to prove in this fight. And that is sometimes the best fights that you can have. When both men have a level of motivation that is beyond personal dislike for each other. This is going to be a good fight. And we've had a good run. I think we've pretty much had, within just barely within the first 2 months of the year, we've probably had at least between 3 to 5 fight of the year candidates already on American television.
Right.
So keep the hits rolling.
Yeah, while we haven't had the signature fight yet, the big mega showdown yet, from a consistency standpoint, we've had some very good fights back to back to back this year, much more than we saw at any point last year in terms of a consistent run, consistent series of exciting fights. And that's why one of the reasons why 2022 was such a disappointing year, at least for the men. Let me specify that for the men. For the women, they showed up and showed out all year long, and it's continuing in 2023. But yeah, to your point, this has a potential to be another barn burner like we've seen over the past 3-4 weeks and really throughout this year. Let's hope the run continues. And I think we're going to end things on that note. Just want to make a note here. Last episode, towards the end of the last episode, we teased that we could possibly talk about a fight between one of Daniel's favorite fighters, Knockout CP Freshmart, and Eric Rosa for the WBA belt down at 105 pounds. Well, during the time between that episode and this particular show, word broke that the fight has been postponed due to visa issues on the part of Rosa. So that's why you heard no mention of that during this particular episode. I just want to at least mention that before we sign off. I want to thank everybody who joined us on this particular episode, comments and questions. In particular, MJ is here. Um, I'll go around the panel here. Begin the show with ladies first. Want to end the show with ladies first. As always, Gail from nyfights.com for those who want to talk boxing. For those who want to occasionally check you out on TMZ Live, let the folks know where they can find you.
And apologies, folks, for being kicked off here a couple of times. It is uncharacteristically cold in Southern California.
Yeah, we usually tease her.
Oh,
We usually
yeah.
tease her. Anything below 65 degrees, Gail is like brr.
Oh,
But
yeah.
just to show you that climate change is real, it is snowing. The song "It Never Rains in Southern California." Well, it's actually snowing in Southern California this week. So yeah, you can be a denier if you want to. Go to LA, go to or Southern California in general. Gail's neck of the woods. The weather's crazy out here. I'll say that.
Yep, just a little bit chilly for us, I'll tell you that. So apparently all that crazy weather and snow has been tossing me off the interwebs. But I am back just to say you can find my regular reporting at nyfights.com. And yes, I will be ringside. I will brave the weather for that hellish drive to Ontario, California for this excellent little fight card. And I hope y'all enjoy it.
Daniel from the Inquirer and For Boxing News for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk professional wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat. Let the folks know where they can hit you up.
All right, folks, like I said, Elon has a new Twitter yet, so Rawkus99, RAWKUZ99. Definitely catch me on there. And think about how the weather's been crazy. Cali has been getting weather out here, at least in this part, downstate New York. This is probably the first actual snowfall we have gotten the entire winter. was over the weekend, and it's already almost melted off. So, yeah, the weather is crazy, folks, but pack up what you can, bundle yourself up, because despite the emergency being off, our little friend ain't gone yet, so still protect yourselves.
Yeah, and down here in the southeast, it seems like spring has come early as we've been 70 plus degree weather for the past week and a half. So yeah, it's the weather guys are on one and have been on one the past few weeks. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is with me on Twitter. Brother JR, at Brother JR76 for those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and fragrance with me on IG and TikTok. You can do so, Brother JR. SC, as I said at the beginning of the show, for those who want to find out all things about Pound for Pound Box Report, the site is the place to go to, p4pboxreport.com. If you wish to email us, you can do so, p4pboxing at p4pboxreport.com. On the site, you will find just navigate, you'll find links to where to check out Pound for Pound Box Report, all those social media platforms, where to check out the podcast on any RSS feed, any RSS distributed feed, be it Apple Podcasts, be it Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, anywhere and everywhere else in between. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Brandon Figueroa and Magsayo, and we will do a preview of Callum Smith, who's number one ranked light heavyweight. He's fighting on the 11th over in England on the Zone. We will also do a preview of Tim Tszyu returning to the ring to fight former champion Tony Harrison. Also, Tony Yoka, he makes his return to the ring following his last fight in which he was following his loss. He's fighting fighting Carlos Takam, in an all French matchup over in Paris. We may talk a little bit about that as well. Tim Tszyu again fighting Tony Harrison over in Tzew's backyard of Australia. That's the highlight fight of the fight of not this week, upcoming weekend, but of the next weekend, right? So we will talk about all of those fights. Again, I want to thank everybody who joined us on the live show. If you're checking us out on YouTube, either now or at a later date, once again, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and subscribe with the black bell so you'll get any and all notifications of Power Box Report. To do both, either one, either or both, it will help our algorithms get us closer to being, and if you subscribe, get us closer to being monetized. So again, thank MJ. MJ is here for his questions and his comments. This has been episode 395 of the Pound for Pound Box Report. For Gail from nyfights.com, from Daniel from For Boxing and News in the Inscriber, I'm your host, Michael. We will see you next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.